who maintains a working studio in Belen, New Mexico. Myra has been a hand weaver for 45 years, and her work can be found in collections all across the United States. Myra received her bachelor's and master's in special education from the University of Northern Colorado. Her postgraduate studies include a certificate in educational technology from the University of California, a certificate of advanced graduate studies in special education from Lesley University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. She has also taught in public schools around the country, serving a range of students from preschool to graduate. She is a member of the Hand Weavers Guild of America, Los Aranes Spinners Weavers Guild, and she is the president of Fiber to Finish, Fiber Arts Guild in Valencia County. So Cameron Weber, oh yes, please mute if you can. Cameron Weber is the Conservation Director of Rio Grande Return, a nonprofit that helps build and protect New Mexico's tributaries and the unique habitats that they support. Following an early career in organic farm and nursery management, Cameron remained focused on work that connects human and natural systems together. Cameron holds a bachelor's in philosophy from Texas A&M University and a master's of community and regional planning from the University of New Mexico. At UNM, Cameron focused her thesis research on the use of long-term ecological monitoring for the Middle Rio Grande bosque restoration and planning. Cameron also serves on the board of the Albuquerque Wildlife Federation and the Southwest chapter of the Society for Ecological Restoration. So, without further ado, I will let you take it away, Cameron and Myra, and go ahead and share your screen. Are you able to share the screen? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're trying to share the screen.
Technical difficulties.
You may already know this, but if they're not hosts or co-hosts, they won't be able to share their screen.
They are co-host.
They are a co-host. Okay, let's see here. I'm trying to share it. I can't see anything here. I can't see anything at all, actually. Oh, back. Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. Participants. Did it? And then, yeah, maybe. Okay. Rename. No. Well, my princess ended up being. No. Let's see here. Okay, now this. Oh, and then it just. Yeah. Let's see. We are a co-host. It should be. That shouldn't be the problem. Yeah. Oh, okay. Share. Okay. Oh, but now it'll share. Mark camera share whiteboard. Oh, screen. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Oh, because you didn't have to finish it then? Guess not. Yeah, okay. And then screen. Okay. Start now.
Yes.
Okay. And then
Accessibility. And okay. The indigenous peoples had been weaving with cotton for many years before the Spanish arrived. Eventually, cotton weaving on the vertical loom became very popular, and it's reaching a renaissance now with modern weavers. So there are some basic tools and supplies that are needed for any kind of dyeing, and I have some of them here on the table. Of course, you need the dye plants, and here's an example of some dye plant. This is a safflower. It's not a New Mexico plant. It just happened to be one I was playing with. And please note that whatever you use in your dye kitchen should never be used for food. So I have a whole separate kitchen and a whole separate set of utensils. Dye spoons, a measuring cup, a digital scale, a digital thermometer work really well too. And because I have two of these exactly alike, one of them is labeled to be in the dye kitchen, rubber gloves, utensils of some sort, colanders, and of course, pots and water. And then, of course, you have to have something to dye with. The importance of fiber was real prevalent. One of the things that happened in the Martinez Hacienda in Taos is they had a cottage industry of sock making, and the socks were taken down to the silver mines in Mexico and sold. So there was a real precedent for socks of all things, but they were needed. Fiber was also important in terms of keeping warm in the winter in especially northern New Mexico. It gets pretty cold, and most of the materials were traded or bartered or just bought. And so there's a handout with all of the basic tools and supplies that you could want. There are some cautions too. We have some buckets here for rinsing material after it's dyed, because that's really important. After you've got some raw wool, and I don't have any with me, I have everything that's dyed, but when you have raw wool, you need to scour it, and you need to scour cotton as well if you're going to dye with cotton. Cotton was not traditionally dyed by colonial Spanish inhabitants. Not until the 1800s, when aniline dyes became popular, was cotton dyed much. So the scouring is really an intensive washing of the fiber so that you remove all of the spinning oils, all of the grease, all of the dust and whatever is in the fiber or fabric. And it also allows the mordant to settle into the fibers, and which allows the dyes to then bite into them. So that part is called scouring. Bundles of wool, you can see being scoured. These were roving pieces, just unspun wool in various kinds of lingerie bags to keep them separate. There is a special mordant for cotton, and there's a special mordant for wool. And if you look at the display that's up here on the tent, there are different mordants that produce different colors using the very same dye. This is all Cochineal, and with different dyes like color, tin, chrome, and iron, you get different colors. And so the mordants can have a real effect on the dye color. This is not intended to be an in-depth dye program. It's an opening peek at what we do for fun and some of the things that are possible. When you mordant with cellulose plant fibers, what I like to do is I like to use an aluminum acetate in a range of 5 to 18 for your weight of woods. It is a very annoying kind of chemical. If the dust is released in the air and you inhale it, it smells like very strong vinegar. So I always use a mask when I'm doing this. I also neutralized mordant with bran. You put bran in a cheesecloth or in a nylon stocking, and you scoop it out and it becomes very milky. And it does a really nice job of neutralizing the mordant. After the mordant has gone into a pot, it goes to a temperature of about 100
If you click this, it will come up on the main screen.
for about 45 minutes, and then you can squeeze it out. You don't have to rinse it. Fibers are ready to dye. So this is a picture of some of the cotton fabric in the neutralizing dye bath.
Could you please speak louder?
When you mordant wool and animal fibers, I like to use aluminum sulfate and cream of tartar. The mordanting is getting the fibers ready to take the dye. It is anywhere from 12 to 20% weight of goods. And if you increase the amount of cream of tartar, you can get a slightly brighter color. The dye is, the dye pot is just the aluminum sulfate and cream of tartar are dissolved in a dye pot, and then they're taken to a temperature of 180 degrees for 45 minutes, and then they're kept there for about 30 minutes. And then it should be allowed to cool, and you're ready to dye. So all of the dyes that we used here are, we also have samples of them that you can take a look at. And if you'd like to just pick one up and take the lid off of it and pass it around, that would be fine. What we have are, we have safflower, kota, catkins from cottonwood trees, walnut, chamisa, pomegranate, indigo, hollyhock. The hollyhock dye came from black hollyhock flowers. We have madder, cochineal, which is one of my favorites. It's a bug that grows on prickly pear plants, and it has a very unique smell to it, but it's also a beautiful, beautiful color. And we have madder, which is a root of a plant, and we are thinking about growing some, but it's very invasive, so you have to be careful about where you plant it. And many of these dyes, except for the safflower, were used traditionally by colonial Spanish people. And do you want to talk about before Spanish colonial people? There were a handful, or 2 handfuls of colors that were widely used, and many of them, or some of them, are on the table, like the Navajo tea. The indigo was traded in Mexico. The cochineal was traded in Mexico. Probably madder could have been grown here, but I'm not sure. Let's see what else. The chamisa is one of the more ancient dyes. Pomegranate, I don't know. Walnuts were available through southern New Mexico and Texas. So a lot of these were around for a really long time before the Spanish War. The black hollyhocks were just something I wanted to try, and I think they turned out really, really well. When something is in a dye bath, you extract the dye from the plant, and this is what the black hollyhocks look like. So after it simmered for about an hour, there was a color change. And that's real frequent, and it's real common that that happens. So when I created a dye bath, what I did was I took about, I don't remember exactly, a pound and 10 ounces of dried hollyhock flowers and covered it with water and then proceeded to cook it. And this is what it looks like. It's just mushy. The most unusual one was the Cottonwood Captains. On the tree, they're red. And when you pick them, they're still red.
That's good enough.
But when you cook them, they turn green. And then what happens is the dye actually became these three shades of green. The darkest one was the first dye bath. The second, which is this one, was the second dye bath, and the third dye bath for the sixth turns it. Those are hand spun samples.
I just want to say something that we didn't realize for our participants, that you are not able to see the video feed that we're trying to provide of Myra showing you all of these things alongside the PowerPoint presentations. So if you're participating virtually, you're seeing the slideshow, and we're going to work through that slideshow, and then we're going to move on to a camera live demonstration, and you will be able to see all of these things that we're referring to right now. So everybody's on the same.
Just stay tuned and be flexible. Okay, so this is some of the yarn that was cooked for 45 minutes, and it's about the color that you see there. It was a big surprise to me. I wanted it to be red because the cat was red. So sometimes you get real interesting results. And so here's the same samples that you see there. If you use a dye like Cochineal that's very strong, Carla lifted it out of the dye bath a minute ago, and it's ruby red. You can use that dye bath for a long time, and you can cook the Cochineal again to extract more color a second, third, and fourth time. So I'm planning to get a whole range of colors of that same hue. So we're going to have a Chamisa display, a demonstration, a Cochineal demonstration, indigo, and pomegranate. And that should be a lot of fun, so please stay tuned. Chamisa is a plant that likes alkaline soils, and it does really well here in New Mexico in desert environments. The flowers and the stems are traditionally used by the Navajo and the Zuni, probably some Pueblo Indians as well. The dyes are created from the clusters of flowers, and they have a very nice smell. The stems are also used to make baskets, and I'd like to see them. I harvested my Chamisa from Paseo del Norte, and I was sure that someone was going to call the police and say, this woman's out there cutting things. Cochineal is a small insect from which this beautiful red dye is obtained. It is also the only red dye that is approved by the FDA for food coloring, for natural food coloring. It's a parasite native to tropical and subtropical South America through North America. The insects are found on pads of prickly pear cacti, and they're collected by brushing them off the plants and dried. The dye was used in North America during the 15th century for coloring fabrics and became important for export goods during the colonial period. Many of the old Navajo patterns, like the chief blankets, were dyed with cochineal. Indigo is one of the most ancient of all dyes, and it was used by the early Spanish in blankets, possibly because the imported indigo was readily available and cost less than other imported dye materials. The Spanish indigo dye blankets were highly prized and given very hard use. Indigo, used as one of the main colors, generally indicates a blanket of high quality, not only materials, mainly the wool, but also the design. After examining hundreds of these blankets, it becomes evident that initially there must have been some design source for the entire group, a set of instructions or drawings to follow, or a blanket to copy. It's hard to know since a lot of the Navajo patterns are just carried around mentally. There are shades of indigo that is in this picture, and there's some shibori. It's a tie-dye project on rayon, along with some silk, cotton, and the wool that you see on the table. Pomegranate is one of the biggest fruits in cultivation, and its rise.
Do we have a question? You guys have a question?
I had a question about growing indigo. I don't know if this is a good time.
I think that's a great chance for us to address the fact that people are going to have questions, and let's hold on to questions until just after the slideshow, and when we can actually see you guys and you can see us, and we're going to go through each of these. We're gonna demonstrate indigo, and we are going to talk about growing indigo. Is that going to work for you?
Yeah, that works absolutely well. Thank you.
Of course.
And thank you for the question. Pomegranate is one of the oldest plants in fruit plants in cultivation, and its rind has been used for dye by carpet makers for a millennia. Pomegranate means seeded apple in Latin. The city of Granada in Spain was named after the pomegranate fruit. The dye is high in tannin and therefore works particularly well with cotton and other plant fibers. It can also be used to dye wool and silk. And it does not require a mordant because it has so much tannin. Walnut is the hulls of the walnut are used to dye yarn. The dye is extracted by cooking it down, and in the picture that you see and on the table that you see, this particular sample was done in one pot, and it has cochineal, walnut, safflower, and Kota. No, it wasn't Kota. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot. Walnut, cochineal, madder, and safflower. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought there. Kota is also known as Navajo tea. It is traditionally sold dried, and it's wrapped around in a circle, so you get it in these little tight bundles. Wool yarn dyed with Kota full strength is a very rich, colorful dye. The yarn can be dyed in multiple dye baths, and it's also used in for medicinal purposes, and it is a tea. The last one that we're going to talk about, I think, is madder. Madder is a root that grows in this area. It's originally from Eurasia, and but it can be grown here. There are very woody stem roots that produce this wonderful color. It's cooked down for about an hour, and it gives you a lovely color. Okay, that's all I have.
Okay, so I don't think our participants can see here yet, but we'll start transitioning over to the video here. I do have some things on the slideshow, but we don't have those slides here. Yeah, well, that's not correct. I don't know whether the slideshow that Erin gave is the same as I have. So there are just a couple other things to mention. We're going to go through demonstrations with these, and around the fibers, cotton was grown throughout this continent, going back a long time, and there are many indigo species native to these continents, and indigenous people have a long history of using wild indigo species for dyeing of native plant fibers, including the Aztec using indigo in robes. Those are visible in the codex. So dye plants around the world have had a chance to sort of experience change and exchange. And while the indigos of Asia and Japan have become sort of the standard used in India, from out of India, out of Bangladesh, out of Japan, out of Kenya, there are native plants around the world that have been used to generate an indigo dye. So I think we are going to talk a little bit about the ethics of harvest. I'm so sorry, I can't see what the presentation slides actually ended up looking like, but what I wanted to get across with the information is that wild harvesting, wild crafting is the harvesting of wild plants for crafts and for traditional uses. And you know, humans have had really healthy, long relationships that are deep, and that collecting plants and putting them to use is a great way to be connected to your home place. However, there are a lot of people on the earth now, and we just need to be careful with how we go about collecting plants. The main thing is to have a sense of what you actually need in terms of plant materials before you go looking to find, because we have this tendency to see a lot of plants and decide that we suddenly need a lot of plant material, right? And so I work a lot with wild seed collection. I think maybe the information that's included in the presentation is taken from some of that information, but with wild collecting for dyeing with native plants or wild plants, a lot of the same principles apply. Basically, understand how much you need before you go looking. When you get to a harvest place, evaluate whether there is even enough to take some from that place. And a good rule of thumb for whether enough is there is, you know, based on how much you need, would you be able to get that much by collecting no more than 10% of the material that's there? And from not collecting from more than 50 plants, you want to collect from at least, the population needs to include at least 10 individuals. I'm using these guidelines for wild populations of plants. A lot of the demonstration plants that we have and a lot of the dye plants that we use are garden plants. So that would be, you know, the pomegranate, the hollyhocks, the madder, the safflower, even walnuts often are grown more often in a landscape than out in the bosque, although they do occur. So if we're talking about garden plants, then great, grow them. Talk to your friends and neighbors who have them in their gardens and just ask for permission and take what they allow you to. You can harvest all of the petals off of a hollyhock and still have a hollyhock plant. Whereas if somebody's going to grow madder, that's a 3-year endeavor at least to end up with roots that can be harvested sometimes in the second fall. You can start to harvest those roots, but that's, you know, that's a gardening endeavor that somebody will have worked at. And so I guess that's get permission before you harvest things out of people's gardens. Kota is something that I wanted to address here because Kota is being, so Navajo tea has for quite some time become kind of like white sage, where it's something people want in commercial spaces, so in gift shops and all kinds of places. And Kota's not an easy thing to grow in a garden. It really likes a wildland situation. And so that means that a lot of the wild populations are experiencing overharvesting. I just wanted to make sure it gets said that Kota needs to be cut above the ground. It does not need to be ripped from the ground or dug out. It doesn't transplant well, so let it do well where it does well. You can cut it with scissors in the summer. Maybe this would be a chance to take questions, and maybe we could switch out of the slideshow, because I think we have our live participants here might have some questions, and I'd love to start getting some questions from folks who are participating virtually.
Trying to figure out.
Yeah.
When she was showing that slide of the hollyhock and how it was purple first and then it became green, can you pull it when it's purple, and will that color hold fast?
It wasn't hollyhock. It was the cottonwood.
Oh.
Yeah. What happens is that it chemically changes with heat, and so you can't stop it.
So you pulled it.
It would be a lighter shade. But remember, they originally started out as green.
Right.
No, it was the biggest surprise of my life, because I had seen them for years, and I thought, well, I could get a nice red out of these, but I got a really nice chartreuse instead.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay, the light fastness of the Cottonwood Captains is considered middle to middle high range. Okay, so it's not as light fast as indigo, but it's pretty light fast. Yeah. Yes.
Staying on cottonwood, just out and about today, the fiber itself, was there ever any attempt to harvest that fiber and use it in a textile?
Cottonwood fluff?
Yeah, cottonwood fluff. Just have to know.
I don't know, but it burns really well. It can be spun.
Yeah.
That's what I mean.
It
Yeah.
can be spun.
Was there ever an attempt at that scale?
I think it's been incorporated. It's been found incorporated into other fibers.
Okay, just
for spinning.
okay.
And another interesting fiber that we have around here is milkweed. And I just gotta say that milkweed is really, really strong, but it's also buoyant. And it was the first fiber that was used in life preservers. Okay. People who had life preservers on the Titanic, those life preservers were full of milkweed fibers. Okay, questions from virtual participants? Do we have the person who is asking a question about growing indigo? We have some good resources here. Could you ask your question?
Sorry, that was me. I was just curious about what people did to help successfully grow indigo. I've been having problems, but I'm in Southeast New Mexico. I don't know if it's just too hot or if it needs more shade. I guess those are questions I could just find online, but I was just curious about people's specific experience with it here in New Mexico.
Which species are you growing?
That's a really great question. Let me find my seed packet. Yeah, I'm sorry. I wasn't prepared for that.
We have an indigo plant here that is Japanese Indigo, Persicoria, Tinctoria, and it's doing great. I didn't even have to start it. Mary Lance, who's here, started this a whole set of plants. So a good source for indigo seeds and other plant materials, if you're interested in growing a dye garden, one of the best resources is a seed company called Grand Prismatic Seed. And they are awesome on the blog and the resources, and have 20 more different dye plants, and including a lot of these. They're the main supplier of madder seed in the US right now. So they've got great resources on how to get them started.
I'm
Indigo-
sorry. I actually, that's where I bought mine off of, this Grand Prismatic. So it's the Japanese Indigo.
It's the Japanese indigo. Okay, so it doesn't like our aridity, and it doesn't like the intensity of UV that we have. So it also doesn't like colder temperatures. So it's an annual, and so you'll treat it like a garden vegetable that you want to keep in the shade. So it's really comparable to growing maybe basil, where especially in southeastern New Mexico, you would want to put up some shade cloth and keep it regularly watered, and also a nice mulch over the soil to reduce the amount of UV hitting the soil and warming up the temperature. It wants a more moderated soil temperature. Any other growing tips that you want to offer? Okay. I don't know if that's helpful to you. Are you having specific problems growing it?
No, I think it just helped me figure out where to move it in my garden. But yeah, it's been pretty stunted in growth. So I started it back in March. So I was just curious.
Cool. Do we have any other lingering questions about these plants, or about the slideshow portion before we move into the demonstration? Is leather dyed in the same way, or is that a whole different? Yeah. Extended period. Extended periods. Extended periods of time in the water. I've tried doing it several times. I've tried eco-dyeing. I know you can do eco-dyeing, it's like it's the plant itself. Do sandwiches against the fiber or the dye. Cover it with something with organs in it, roll it up. It works wonderful on fibers, but the heat and the steam. So I'm still playing around with that. I love, the eco dye, the idea of eco dye, especially on some of the fun shoots here in landscape. But stay tuned, we'll get there.
One other question about the dyeing process. I don't remember the term that you used to talk about basically cleaning, scouring. So what happens if you don't scour and you're interested in a less uniform result? Is that interesting, or is it just...
It is. It's
okay?
wonderful.
Okay.
Sometimes I do.
Yeah.
Listen, I have a teacher class. Anyway, sometimes I take sheep fleece before it's being scoured. Give it a good shake and you get the food and the other stuff out of it, or a vegetable market. Fleeces, fine fleeces like merino can have 60% fleece in it. Even charro has lanolin and suins and all the other stuff. What will happen is that without the mortar, the dye may not bite onto the fiber. It's like it sits on the surface. The mortar helps it form chemical bond. And And Celeste.
Can we ask a question?
Yeah, we've got another question. Go ahead.
Yeah, can we get a copy of this handout that you had? We had a very hard time hearing, and we hardly ever have seen we're seeing the presentation now, but for most of it, we didn't.
Okay.
Yeah, the recording and the PowerPoint slide, as well as the handout, will be available on the Albuquerque Museum's website starting this Tuesday.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much. And what are your hours? What are your hours out at Casa Ysidro?
So at Casa San Ysidro, we are open from 9 to 3 with scheduled tours Tuesday through Friday, 9:30 and 1:30. And then on Saturday, you can join us at 10:30, noon, and 1:30. All of this is registered through Hold My Ticket. So you need to go on to holdmyticket.com and select your tour slot.
All righty, thank you. That's me.
So we hope you'll stay with us while we come over here and head to the dye vats. We're gonna do some demonstrations.
Yes, essentially.
Okay, yeah, so let's set the stage here.
We have in this pot, we have cochineal, with cochineal in this pot. In the second pot, we have, let me show you the cochineal dye. It's a fabulous cherry red. No. This is pomegranate.
Pomegranate peels.
Okay. In the next dye vat, we have indigo, and we're ready to put things in. Okay. It's a very nice dark vat. And in the last vat, we have Chamisa, and it has a really nice smell. And I'm going to decant it now. I'm going to take the flower heads out of the pot.
And the lid too. If you guys need to ask a question as we're going, just speak on up.
Yeah.
I was actually curious if there are some dye plant varieties or materials that you might use like a tea bag or something for, or if it's better just to let it simmer loosely for most of them.
So I'm done. I'm right now I'm taking the dye bath and the extract, and I'm emptying the flowers out. The smell is very lovely. It smells like summer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, you want all that out? Yes, please.
Okay, the answer to your question is yes. There is a plant called safflower that you can use. And I did use tea bags. I found tea bags were too small, so I used coffee filters. I stapled them closed.
Yeah, tea bags are handy. The lingerie bags that Myra shared earlier are handy. But also just putting the material straight in the water and then pouring it through a cheesecloth set.
And the dye material that we use, this is one pound, 12 and a quarter ounces of frozen Chamisa. I store it in the freezer when I'm ready for it. As I pour this, take a look at the rich, deep color. some bits of plant matter that I'm going to try to keep in the dish pan. There we go. Now, I'm going to add
The prep that you did before this point was to take your frozen 12.5 ounces of Chamisa flowers and you put them just in tap water and you boil.
You cook them for about an hour. Now, the Navajo dye book that we have here says cook them for up to 2 hours. I just sort of turned it off and let it sit on for a minute. So it's probably about 2 hours. But already, look at that buttery color. Okay, Carla, that's for your rug.
Yep, so we're going to do 2 skeins of yarn here, of full yarn that is, one is going to get first Chamisa and then next it'll go into the indigo.
And we should come up with a great, beautiful blend.
Yep.
I'm always, I'm again like, okay, so the only thing that we don't have on, we have that beautiful red that we saw, and Sheldon, if you want to display, these are some pieces that were tie-dyed. They're both silk, and immerse them in the Cochineal pot. The top one had been previously dyed with some other plant material, and so we're always looking for layered effects of color. And then back here, you see the cherry red yarn. It's a hand spun yarn from Albuquerque. Okay.
Because it takes the longest.
Right. They all. Okay. The interesting thing about indigo is that when it's dumped, you want to make sure that very little air is introduced to the pot, and as it comes out of the pot, it oxidizes to the atmosphere. Thank you for the handle for it. But it really is a good idea to have a handle, otherwise you're fishing things out. The suspense mounts. It has a really lovely metallic color on the top. It looks like an oilskin.
So just to review, what happens with indigo is there is basically a fermentation. There's a fermentation process. And the actual dye reaction doesn't happen until the fabric is then exposed to oxygen after the dye. So we'll be doing multiple dips with each of these. So you can see down in there, it looks like not much is changing, and that's true, but it's soaking in. And you want to, like Myra said, not disturb the pot very much. So I'm just holding this nice and still right under the surface. And we want to hold it for at least 1 minute. We could go to like a 3 or a 5 minute dip, but I'm going to start with maybe a 1 minute dip. Then we'll take it out, expose it to the air, see the reaction, and then rinse it, and then decide if we want to do another dip. Sure. Okay. Wait, nobody can hear you, so come on over.
The neat thing about the indigo dye is the dye itself, the bath looks like Mountain Dew. It does not look like indigo. And the first time,
Cannot hear you.
why not? Is that better? So the indigo dye vat looks like a vat of Mountain Dew with an oil slick on top of it. It does not look like what you think an indigo vat should look like. And the first time I did indigo dyeing, it came out and I complained because it was green. And I didn't want green. There's something wrong with this bag. It's green. Myra, remember? I made a lot of noise. I'm not quiet about it. So within a minute, you'll see the edges of it start to turn blue. And once it's completely oxidized and there's no green showing at all, then you can dip it again. But you have to wait until the oxidization is complete, because if you don't, when you re-dip it, it's going to sort of remove the that you've done. And there it is. There it is. It's green, but already it's beginning to turn a little blue. And you give it about, I usually give it about 5 minutes in between dips to make sure most of the oxidization is done. But if you turn this one around, see this part here? I don't want to see this part here? See? Yeah, but it's getting darker now. It's getting darker and darker. Okay. So give it about another 3-4 minutes, and then we'll put it back in for another couple of minutes. The indigo is also used as a fire retardant in traditional Japanese garments. And those garments are dipped sometimes up to 60 times. And it's layer upon layer upon layer of glue that helps it. It's also an antibacterial. So it's got a lot of things going for it. Okay, so, oh, this is beautiful green color coming up. If you look at this dye pot, where the chamisa is, it looks like egg noodles. We're getting angry here. It looks really great. It's a very rich, buttery color, and I can see why people really like it. It's a little bit lighter in shade as it loses a little bit of the dye, but I think it's going to be just perfect. Okay. Yes.
So maybe we want to start. Do you want to just go through all of the wool and then we'll go through the plant fibers, or do we want to keep rolling both?
Whatever. Why don't you give me a piece of cotton and I'll put it in the Chamisa pot?
Okay, this is scoured and mordanted cotton, unbleached.
I'm going to just get rid of a little bit of the extra water. I don't want to dilute the pot too much.
It's pretty hot.
Yeah, I don't want to use the mic for this part. Okay, so we put it in the dye pot, and I haven't had a lot of experience dyeing cotton, cellulose fiber, with Chamisa, so this is an experiment. We'll see how it goes. All right?
So we'll just let it sit.
We're going to just let it sit. It can sit for about 30 minutes or so, or until we get tired of waiting for it.
How's everybody doing virtually? Is this working?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, good, great. So we've started something. We've got another piece of bundled sort of shibori style cotton in the indigo.
Mm-hmm.
We've got 2 skeins and 1 piece of cotton in the chamisa. Let's go look at.
How about one bleached and one unbleached into the Cochineal?
Okay, so 1 piece that's mordanted and 1 piece that's not mordanted. And
correct.
Yeah.
Isn't that pretty? It almost looks like beets.
Yeah.
I know. I'm married to one of them. And how about one of the other ones? Oh, there was something else down here. Oh,
Yeah, great.
so it's nice to get to the very
Find
bottom.
something in the pot.
I'm going to stir these around so that they get evenly colored.
I guess we should also mention each of these dye vats was sort of mixed and made with some sort of ratio of the dye material to the water. And Myra was explaining with the chamisa that you had 12.5 ounces, and what's that, 2 gallons of water or something.
And 8 ounces of wool.
And 8 ounces of wool. Okay, so in this cochineal pot, how much cochineal did you put in here and how much water?
There were 2 quarts of water initially and 4 tablespoons, I'm sorry, it's not the weight, 4 tablespoons of cochineal bugs that I then ground up with an electric coffee grinder.
Okay, and then with the pomegranates, it's way more.
You seem to be frozen.
Yeah, I think we lost them.
Cameron, can you hear us? Give me one moment, I'll see what's going on. Okay, sorry everyone, our phone overheated, so we're gonna get a new one here, just hang tight.
Well, hey guys, I'm in Southeast New Mexico. If anyone is in this region and would ever like to get together for dyeing or foraging, there's also in Cloudcroft a fiber guild, spinning and weaving primarily, called the High Canyon Weavers and Spinners. If anyone is in the area or interested in checking it out, they're pretty cool. And I just want to take advantage of now to say that. So happy Saturday, guys.
Oh, you're muted, Cameron.
Okay, unmute. Unmute. Are we good?
We are good.
All right.
Okay.
There's do you want to just hold this thing instead of trying to play with that? We have this handy. Oh gosh.
The traditional indigo vats are urine vats.
Okay, interesting.
I'm not making one of those.
All right.
Yeah.
So your hand is in front of the camera.
Or was it just?
I see.
But then again, discuss that
Yeah.
with.
Okay, so we are virtual and have virtual participants again.
Okay. No, it wasn't.
You're at no time.
That's the man.
Okay, if you want to, you can peek over here. So this is Myra's. This is Myra's first piece that went in initially for a first dunk, and I pulled it out. It stayed out for about 10 minutes, and then I just put it in for about another 4, and it's definitely getting darker. So we'll hang it up again and give it another chance to be exposed to the air, and Myra can decide if she wants to keep going from there.
Can we get full screen?
What? Hanging around.
Full screen. Let me see.
Yeah. We have everybody that's watching as well as that screen.
Oh, I think you're gonna have to change that on your own computer.
doesn't-
You're in gallery view. So you just need to go to your view options. It's nothing we can do.
Oh,
I think it's.
Well, what we have is a full screen of everybody else. We can't seem to get a full, somebody has to do it on your side so that we're not looking at everyone else.
Are you able to change your view into speaker view?
No.
You talking to us?
Yeah, participants.
Speaker. Now we have,
evaluating it now.
now we have nothing. We have somebody from the museum. On a
Go to
still
share.
shot. There we go. There we go. Thank you.
Okay, we're good.
Okay.
We're good.
So there must be some kind of
Okay, so Myra, you ready to pull out some of those pieces of cotton?
Not quite yet, maybe another 5 minutes. Here.
Okay, another 5 minutes. Should we start with something in the pomegranate?
We've got pomegranate. This is probably ready to come out. Is that pomegranate? This is pomegranate. Wow.
So that's from the peel though,
Do you
not
wanna
from the
place to
fruit
go?
flesh, right?
Look at that other colander.
Yeah, what happened?
Oh, it's
Look
got
at
all
it.
this.
Oh, it's got all, that's okay.
Yeah, yeah, don't waste it.
I'm gonna just drip on the ground. As I head over here.
Sheldon, it doesn't work the same way. So,
I mean,
oops.
Just say it.
Just
It's okay.
this filming.
Right.
yeah.
That's my theory. It does dry. It'll dry real quickly in this. Okay, so. What do you think? Do you vote for this one to come out?
Yeah, I like that.
Are there any other people voting besides the loud one?
Can everybody hear us okay without the microphone at this point?
We can hear you just fine.
Okay, thanks. Okay. So what, that last one, what was that one? This? What, this is the Chamisa. Oh,
And this is pomegranate.
We talked about that one yet?
No, we
No,
haven't.
okay. Let's keep it.
It's a piece that I tied up for Aaron. He gave me some extra fabric and I thought,
He can hear you.
There's a really neat dye. It's a purplish dye called.
okay, how are we doing on your cottons? We've got room for another cotton down here.
And it's not like that.
yeah, we have plenty of pieces of cotton.
Do we want to have some of the folks here?
Yeah.
Put one in?
Right.
Yeah. Do you all want to die?
Sure.
Don't you want to die?
It's been dying. I have dye buttons
It's a
all
good
over
day
me.
to die.
Okay.
So again, we're pre-soaking everything before they go into the dye bath. So we've got this scoured and mordanted, only scoured. We have only scoured because the indigo and the cochineal don't require mordanting. So Audra, what do you want to dye? What do you want to? Which dye pot you want to go into?
Can we do half in here and half in here?
What do you mean?
Drape the fabric.
Sure, sure, as long as you stand there and hold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, can't we just lay it over?
20 minutes for it to strike.
Oh.
So how strong are your arms?
Strong. Let's do indigo.
Okay, then you're going to want one of those pieces.
Now, where did you get? You want gloves?
Yeah, I brought gloves for you. Or yeah, those are probably great.
I brought the box gloves too.
Indigo sticks around for a while.
You need to smell this. It smells like beach.
And that's the indigo?
I shouldn't have got my hand wet first.
Exactly.
Oh, it sure does.
It smells like what?
Wow.
The beach.
It does smell like the
You
ocean.
know,
Yeah.
kind of rotting seaweed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, we have a question, Cameron.
Okay.
Where can people buy cochineal?
Myra, where did you buy your cochineal?
Espanola Valley.
Espanola Valley Fiber Arts Center. And they're online, and they were at the end of the PowerPoint presentation with our resources slide. I think that all of that will be available on Tuesday on the city website. So let's go over here.
You're doing an indigo?
So are you wanting to?
Cochineal?
Okay, great.
It's a pretty.
I don't know why I put this glove on my non-dominant hand.
Okay, so again, you want to disturb the surface as little as possible. So use this and grab it, and no, not plunk him right in. Ease it in and set it down. You can either hold it up high or set it down.
Is there something else in there?
No, nothing is in there right now, but it might try to float. So don't jiggle it because then it's, well, you might need to just lean those on the side and that's just fine. So we wanted to sit for no less than a minute with this bat, and we can let it sit for, 5 minutes. And that'll be the first dip. You might want to do more than that. Yeah, let's do show the plant. This is what we were talking about earlier, Japanese Indigo, Persicoria Tinctoria. And you can see it just got a little stressed out being out here. And you can see the blue dye color in the stressed out leaves. So this plant was started from seed from Grand Prismatic by Mary Lance. I think she started the seeds in February, late February, early March. Cool. So again, grow it, treat it like a basil plant, meaning baby it.
Make pesto.
There you go.
Don't make pesto.
All right, so you're gonna do the cochineal.
Right. On sort of a tannish cotton, I think. It is.
Okay, that's the more did.
Yeah.
It's down here. It's actually where it's starting to happen.
Well, will some of these samples still be available for people to pick up if they visit Casa?
Yes, there are going to be 18-inch kerchiefs available here that we're just experimenting with, that you can come choose one. So with the cochineal, Myra, is it the same kind of thing with the indigo, or is what he's doing there with like basting it? Is that can that help wrap it more rapid?
No, it will
dye?
make it more rapid. It'll make it more even.
Great.
The idea that you don't do it with indigo is because of the oxygen. You don't want the oxygen in there.
Do I just keep pushing it down, or
You're frozen again.
Sorry about this, everyone. It is hot out there, so that phone may have overheated already as well. I will see if we can get another one.
Thank you.
All right, we can see you, but we can't hear anything. Are you on mute, Sheldon? Well, I am sorry for the technical difficulties. It's about 100 degrees out there. For some reason, we're not getting sound. But again, you can see this recording on the Albuquerque Museum website, and you can get all of the informational handouts and PowerPoint that will be available on the website this Tuesday. I will go ahead and leave this on for people that want to see the demonstration, but we probably won't be able to hear them. Oh, you're on mute, Sheldon.
There we go.
There
Can
we
you
go.
hear us?
Yep.
Okay, so this is one of the native to the Americas or this continent. This is a wild plant called Indigo Caroliniana, and it is native to the Carolinas and beyond in the southeast. And this specimen was provided to us from the woman who runs Madame Mega's, which is a really fun school for indigo dyeing in the Carolinas. So if you're very interested in indigo, this is a cool person to connect with because she is helping in the recovery of wild indigo in the Carolinas. So she was gracious enough to send this plant specimen over to us via Mary Lance, who's the documentary filmmaker who made the Blue Alchemy documentary, which you should also check out if you haven't seen already. You guys feel free to chime in with other questions. If there's somewhere you want to go back to, we're sort of able to take you there.
We have one question asking if we'll be posting sources for supplies.
I put that in the resources the resources slide. That was the last, second to last slide.
Oh, perfect. Then it will be available on Tuesday.
I have a question.
Great.
So since I'm in a garden program with like teaching children how to use different plants, we wanted to do tie-dye shirts. So how would I tie-dye a shirt? Like, do I have to get like cotton shirts or?
Doing tie-dye with kids?
Yeah, because we wanted to be non-chemical.
Yeah.
And we wanted to use like plants.
Okay. Well, then you could get cotton tees, and then you do want to scour them. You want to wash and then scour them probably. And then you could use dyes that don't require a mordant, because mordants are where a lot of where you're going to run into those issues. So you could do cochineal with the kids, which is this one. You could do black walnut. Exactly. The Cottonwood Captains would be a great one. A lot of the ones that we talked about, madder does require a mordant, I believe. And so is that what your question is about? Which plants could you use? But choose plants that that you can skip the mordant on, and you'll be able to avoid them needing to handle fibers coming out of the mordant.
When I was teaching, I used to use Chamisa with my students to dye with. I wouldn't mordant it, but I would just use the Chamisa.
Great.
Awesome. Thank you.
Do you have any more advice for each other there around what other materials to use to make tie-dyeing good for school kids?
Chamisa is the only thing I used because it was plentiful in the fall, and I could pick it, and I could have the children help me pick it.
Chamisa can give you a green dye or a yellow dye, so that would be another fun reason to include it. Because if you take, all of the stem in addition to the flowers, then you can make a green dye with the stem and yellow dye with the flowers. So you could make two.
Two for the price of one.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, you guys, for all the technical difficulties. I'm amazed that you've hung in there. Thanks for sticking around. It would have been so much more fun to have you all out here, but maybe another time.
Yeah, we really would love to come out and do this.
Yeah.
We are supposed to be back in full swing with in-person programming starting either in August or September.
That would be wonderful. Will there be notices?
There will, absolutely. We'll be advertising these kinds of programs. So these second Saturday programs happen once a month. Obviously, all of last year and this year thus far have been mostly virtual.
Okay.
No,
And where will it be advertised?
You can find information on the Albuquerque Museum website, or you can visit Casa San Ysidro's Facebook, and that will provide some direct links.
Let it cool off just a bit. I can touch things with rubber gloves on, but I wouldn't normally. I'm just throwing that dye back in there. Okay, Carla has a pair of scissors, and there's a pair of scissors on the table as well. No.
This type. Sure.
do some other things. It's better if you more Chamisa.
That's old. I was like a straw.
Oh, wow.
That's pretty sick.
That's awesome.
Put it wherever.
It is not, right? It's absolutely not. It's not necessarily well. For the reaction, it's gonna come back. And
We'll squeeze right aside, you guys. Oh, pardon. No, you're fine, you're fine.
He's a-
DJI? I don't know what this is, dude. So
We all want one.
they're really cool.
Yes.
You have an extra $100.
Is that the Indigo?
And if he gets one,
What's
then I
that?
can use it.
Is that
What's
the
that?
Indigo?
Yes, this is the Chamisa that was dipped in the indigo, and now we're trying to get a green. What do you think?
Oh, it's beautiful.
That's Charlie?
it's gonna keep darkening while we walk it.
Yeah. As it's exposed to air, it will change. And some of the strands that are way in the center will take longer to oxidize because they're covered up by other ones. But I think this is a good green.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
Yeah.
How else could you get there?
Yes.
This pink one is a bug that grows on.
It's a
bug.
bud.
It's
Bug.
Oh, bug.
It's,
bug,
it's
bug.
actually only the female bodies that they harvest. The bodies of this bug, and it's the females that they
That's nice.
have. So it's called that the bug is called Cochineal,
Okay.
and it's a sucking like a sucking bug that almost looks like that. And it puts on that pulling the juices from the paper. And then it gets so concentrated in the female bug's bodies, and then the people collect it like by just hand picking and
Probably them.
and brushing them off the fence, and then they dry them on sheets, like often in the sun, and then they'll get ground up into a powder. Wow. And then turned into the dye.
Okay.
Wow. Yeah. Hopefully it's human dye.
Probably.
It's a bug.
Another.
I really like bugs.
I do too.
Bugs are beings too.
I love what they do for us.
Right.
This is a piece of silk that somebody else dyed, my friend here to my right, and it was twisted and dyed. We've got a little bit of that.
Looks like we've overheated once again. I will go ahead and stop the demonstration, but please feel free to visit Casa San Ysidro, go to Hold My Ticket and reserve a place for a tour, or you can go to the Albuquerque Museum's website to see upcoming programming, and find more informational handouts. Thank you so much for everyone that joined us today.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Just nice.
Thank you for doing it.
And
Thank you very much. It was a really lovely presentation. I'm so sorry you guys had so many problems with the heat.
That's okay. That's just part of it.